Hi, lovelies. She came to the counter one afternoon with a notebook, colour-coded tabs, a spreadsheet printed out and folded in half. She had been budgeting for 3 months, she said. She'd read the articles, she'd downloaded the template, she'd categorised everything, and she was still overspending, every single month. She looked at me and said, "I don't understand. I'm doing it right." She was tracking, but she wasn't budgeting, and those two things are not the same. If you've ever made a budget and still ended the month confused about where the money went, this one's for you. 1. The difference between tracking and budgeting. Most people start here. I used to work in a bank, and I saw it constantly. People with detailed records of what they'd spent, and almost no idea what they were going to spend. Tracking tells you where the money went. Budgeting tells the money where to go. One is a rearview mirror, the other is a steering wheel. The woman with the colour-coded notebook had a very good rearview mirror. She knew exactly what she'd spent on groceries in October. She just hadn't decided what she was going to spend on groceries in November before November arrived. And so, the money arrived, and it just went. Same as the month before, same as the month before that. Your budget doesn't have to be complicated to fix this. It just has to happen before the money moves. Not after. Try this for 1 month before your salary lands. Write down where it's going, not in categories, in decisions. Then when the money arrives, the decisions are already made. 2. Your memory is a bad accountant. This is the one people miss. A budget built from what you think you spend is a budget built on fiction. Most people underestimate their discretionary spending by a significant margin, not because they're dishonest. Because the brain rounds down and quietly forgets the Tuesday afternoon coffee and the 3 small things from the supermarket that weren't on the list. I remember a man at the counter who told me he spent about £200 a month on food. He asked me to pull up 3 months of statements. It was closer to £380. He went quiet for a moment. Then, where does the rest go? He genuinely didn't know. This is not unusual. It is almost universal. Before you build a budget, look backward. Pull 1 to 3 months of real statements, not your memory of what you spent. The actual numbers, that is the only honest starting point. If it helps, Money Helper has a free budget planner that walks you through exactly this. Income, bills, real spending, all in one place. Use it as a mirror before you make a plan. Most people who do this come away surprised, not because they were being reckless, because the gap between memory and reality is almost always wider than they expected. 3. The bills that pretend to be surprises. Here's what quietly wrecks more budgets than overspending on coffee. Annual costs, car insurance, home insurance, television license, school trip fees, the boiler service, the dentist. None of these are surprises. They happen every year. Some of them happen twice a year, but because they don't show up on the monthly statement, they never make it into the monthly budget. And then they arrive, and they feel like emergencies. And the budget collapses. I used to see this pattern repeatedly behind the counter. Someone would come in to discuss their finances, and they'd have a solid picture of their regular outgoings, but no line for the things that came around once a year. The fix is straightforward. Take every annual or irregular cost you can think of, add them up, divide by 12. That is a monthly amount. Put it somewhere. A separate savings pot, a named account, a digital envelope. Doesn't matter where. What matters is that the money is set aside before the bill arrives. When the car insurance comes, it's not a crisis. It's already covered. I saw the difference this made in the customers who came back a year later. The ones who'd built even a small pot for the annual costs weren't rattled by them. They were expecting them. 4. Why most budgets fail in week 3. This is the part nobody tells you at the start. The first week usually goes well. The second week, you're still paying attention. Week 3, something unexpected comes up, or you're tired, or you go over in one category, and it feels like the whole month is already lost, and you stop. Research by Philippa Lally at University College London found that forming a new habit takes a median of 66 days, not 21, 66. If your budget still feels awkward in week 3, you're not failing, you're just early. The second thing that helps, a budget needs a short weekly check, not an audit, 10 minutes. Look at what you've spent. Look at what's left in each category. Decide if anything needs adjusting before the month ends. That small ritual is where financial confidence actually gets built. It feels boring. It works. If your budget has no review built in, it's not a budget. It's a plan you made once and then hoped held together. 5. The framework question, and why people ask it backwards. Most people ask, what's the best budgeting method? Then they pick one, then they wonder why it doesn't stick. I used to watch this at the counter too. Someone would come in having tried a system they'd read about online, detailed, color-coded, completely wrong for their life. The question isn't which method is best. It's which one your life can actually support right now. If you're overwhelmed, you need something with 2 or 3 categories, not 15. If you're trying to pay off debt, you need every pound to have a job before the month begins. If the only thing holding you back is not saving first, you need a standing order that moves money before you can spend it. The method follows the problem, not the other way around. The right framework is the one that fits how your life actually runs. Not the most impressive one, the most sustainable one. One simple way to start: look at where your money is slipping most. That tells you which kind of structure you actually need. If any of this is landing close to home, you're not alone. I sat across from hundreds of people who were trying, genuinely trying. And the thing I noticed, the thing that stayed with me, was how many of them had a budget they'd stopped opening. Not deleted, not abandoned, just quietly stopped opening. Because the first bad week had felt like proof it wasn't working. It was working. They just hadn't been told what to do when it got hard. 6. The budget that holds when life doesn't go to plan. A budget that only works when everything is fine is not a useful budget. This is the one most beginners don't build. When something goes wrong, the car breaks down, the boiler needs a part, the washing machine stops mid-cycle, a budget without any buffer sends everything backwards. I remember a woman who'd been doing brilliantly. 3 months of steady budgeting, savings building. Then a £340 repair bill arrived, and it wiped out everything she'd put aside. She came back to the counter frustrated, not because she'd done anything wrong, but because she hadn't been told this part. A budget needs a buffer. Not a large emergency fund. That's a separate goal, just a small amount each month that sits between the budget and the unexpected. Even £20 a month builds something. The people who kept their budgets running through difficult months didn't do it by being perfect. They did it by having somewhere for the imperfect months to land. If it helps, open a savings pot and name it buffer. Set up a standing order for whatever small amount fits. It will matter more than it sounds. 7. The version of you who checks. Here's the one that separates the people who keep going from the people who quit. I used to see it play out over months at the counter. 2 customers, similar incomes, similar costs, one reviewed statements, caught drift, made small adjustments every week. The other came in at the end of the quarter, surprised that things hadn't improved. The difference wasn't discipline, it wasn't willpower, it was the check-in. If you overspend in one category, that isn't a budget failure. That is a budget working. It showed you something. Move money from a lower priority category. Note what triggered it. Carry on. What kills a budget is the decision that the month is already ruined. It isn't. A budget that survives an imperfect month is more valuable than a budget that survives a perfect one, because imperfect months are the ones that actually happen. When I saw people stick with their budgets through a difficult stretch, it was almost never about having more money. It was because they'd stopped treating a bad week as permission to quit the month. The woman who came to the counter with the color-coded notebook didn't have a budget problem. She had a direction problem. The numbers were right. The decisions weren't made in advance. A budget isn't about tracking where the money went. It's about deciding where it's going. Every one of these patterns can be interrupted. Not with a perfect system. With a simple one, you'll actually open and adjust. Pick the framework that fits your life. Start with real numbers, not memory. Set aside something for the costs that pretend to be surprises. Build in the weekly 10 minutes where you look, adjust, and carry on. A system you'll use is worth more than a perfect one you won't. Slow down. Think clearly, and that's how you start to love your money.